For 5,000 years the galaxy had been silent. Empires rose and fell, battles burned across countless stars, and ancient ruins were swallowed by time. But one thing remained buried deeper than all others. A signal, old and forbidden, sent once into the endless void and never spoken of again. Entire generations of alien races were taught to fear it. Records were sealed, maps erased, warnings carved into stone. "Do not answer," the ancients had said. "Let it sleep." And so it slept, waiting for someone foolish or fearless enough to reply. Humanity never knew of these warnings. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, young compared to empires that had stood for 1,000 generations. Humans carried their curiosity like fire, burning into places where others would not dare to go. And when their deep space explorers found fragments of a strange repeating pulse, hidden beneath cosmic radiation near the edge of the Orion Arm, they did what humanity always did. They reached out. It was a simple act. A science vessel detected the signal, decoded it, and sent back a reply. No one on board could explain why the pattern felt so deliberate, so ancient, so heavy with meaning. They only knew that silence begged for an answer. The reply was transmitted across the void, carrying humanity's voice into the darkness. On the distant worlds of alien councils, panic spread like wildfire. Monitors lit up. Archives trembled with alarms that had not been activated for thousands of years. The forbidden frequency was awake again. Old empires remembered stories whispered in secret about what the signal truly was and why it was locked away. Entire species froze in terror, muttering the same words. Someone has answered the call. But who? No one believed at first that it could be humanity. They were too young, too reckless, too untested. Surely no species so small would dare to touch the thing all others avoided. Yet reports came in undeniable. The coordinates pointed to Earth space. Humanity had broken the silence. In the halls of the Galactic Council, alien leaders argued in fear. Some demanded that humanity be destroyed at once before the consequences arrived. Others said it was already too late, that the call was never meant for mortals to answer, that it belonged to something older, something locked away beyond time. Still others whispered that if anyone could survive the curse of the signal, it might be the humans. For where other races saw danger, humanity always saw challenge. Back on Earth, the explorers who sent the reply were celebrated. They thought they had discovered an ancient relic, a chance to prove humanity's brilliance to the stars. But they did not see the fear spreading through the galaxy. They did not hear the frightened prayers of civilizations far older than them. They only heard their own excitement, their own pride, their own hope that maybe they had awakened a new era of discovery. The first answer did not come immediately. For days the void stayed quiet, as though it was considering, as though the silence itself was holding its breath. But the humans who monitored the signal felt a shift, a subtle change in the rhythm of the stars. Instruments picked up faint distortions, as though the fabric of space was stirring, as though something vast was turning its gaze back toward them. Whispers began to grow among human scientists. Maybe it is a lost civilization. Maybe it is knowledge older than our kind. Maybe it is a friend reaching across the void. Yet deep in their bones, some felt the wrongness. The pulse was not a greeting. It was not an invitation. It was a lock, and humanity had just opened it. Alien fleets moved quietly to watch. Dozens of empires sent scouts to orbit human space, cloaked in shadow, watching and waiting. They did not come to help. They came to see if the old stories were true. They came to see if humanity's boldness would bring ruin upon them all. Still, the humans stood unaware of the full danger. They prepared their ships, eager for contact. They trained, their officers dreaming of honor. They waited for the first true message from the unknown. They did not know that across the galaxy, ancient races whispered prayers of fear. The humans have answered the forbidden call. May the stars forgive us all. The tension stretched, days into weeks. Humanity leaned closer to the signal, searching for meaning. And then, without warning, the void answered. A sound, not of words but of power, echoed back through the dark. The stars shivered, sensors screamed, space itself twisted, as though something vast had shifted behind the veil. For the first time in 5,000 years, the silence was broken, and the one who had broken it was humanity. The signal had been answered. That truth could not be hidden. No matter how hard the councils tried to suppress it, no matter how many records they erased, the message spread across the galaxy like fire on dry grass. Humanity had awakened the forbidden. On distant worlds, alien leaders gathered in panic. Vast chambers of the Galactic Council, once filled with careful debates about trade and treaties, now echoed with fear. Elder races, ones who had survived countless wars, spoke in hushed tones like frightened children. Even the proudest empires bent their voices low when they whispered, "The humans have done it." Some demanded immediate war. They argued that Earth must be destroyed before the consequences arrived. "Strike them now," one commander roared, his scaled hands trembling, "before the ancient thing returns." Others shook their heads in despair. It is too late. The lock has been broken. Nothing can stop what is coming. In the shadows of those halls, quieter voices asked a different question. Why humanity? For 5,000 years, no race had dared to reply. Even the most curious explorers had turned away in terror. The warnings were always enough. But humanity? Humanity had always been different. They were new to the stars, yet they carried no fear of the ancient tales. They carried fire in their blood, a restlessness that no empire could ever understand, and, now that fire had touched the forbidden. Across the galaxy, panic took many forms. Entire fleets shifted position, moving to borders near human space. Colonies sealed their skies and tightened their defenses. Scholars dug through ancient records, searching for fragments of the last time the signal had been heard. What they found made them tremble. It was not a call for help. It was not a beacon of knowledge. It was a prison key, and whoever answered became the one to open the gate. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity remained blind to the full truth. Celebrations still filled their networks. News channels hailed the discovery as proof that humanity had finally reached the heart of the stars. Scientists debated eagerly, convinced that they were about to meet an ancient intelligence. Explorers prepared expeditions to seek the source of the signal. They dreamed of glory, unaware that in the shadows, alien fleets watched their every move. The galaxy's fear grew heavier with every passing day. The Council sent emissaries cloaked in secrecy to beg humanity to stop. But humans refused. To them, fear was weakness. Every warning from alien voices only strengthened their curiosity. "If they are so afraid," some human leaders whispered, "then we must see what lies beyond." And so humanity prepared. They readied their ships not for war but for discovery. Yet their fleets had always been born in fire. Every vessel carried weapons sharper than most empires expected. Every crew carried the stubbornness of a species that had clawed its way from the dirt to the stars. In the halls of alien power, despair deepened. "Do you not understand?" one elder cried, her voice cracking with terror. "It is not the humans we should fear, it is what will follow." But her words were too late. The forbidden was already stirring. Then came the first signs. Not attacks, not invasions, simply changes in the galaxy itself. Stars near the edge of the void began to flicker unnaturally, as if their light was being swallowed. Whole sectors reported strange distortions, rifts opening like wounds in space. Fleets sent to investigate vanished without a trace. The galaxy understood at last. The silence of 5,000 years had not been natural. It had been forced. Something had been locked away. And now, because of humanity, that lock had been broken. Still, humanity did not run. Reports came in of strange readings, of stars bending, of echoes whispering across comms. And yet the humans did what no other race would ever dare. They leaned closer. They pushed their ships forward, staring into the storm. "If something comes, Their admirals declared, "We will face it." The aliens watching from afar whispered in disbelief. To them, humanity's actions looked like madness. To humans, it was destiny, and so the galaxy waited. Some prayed for mercy, some prepared for death, but none dared act. They knew the truth too well. Once the Forbidden answered, nothing could be undone. Above all, they feared the possibility no one wanted to speak aloud. What if the ancient thing was not the danger? What if the true danger was humanity itself daring to meet it head-on? The galaxy held its breath. The stars trembled. The silence of 5,000 years was gone, and fear stretched across every empire. And at the center of it all, humanity stood unshaken. The first tremors were small, a ripple of static across long-range sensors, a distortion in the fabric of space that made instruments flicker and alarms stutter. At first, humanity thought it was nothing more than interference, a quirk of the stars. But as the days stretched on, the signs grew stronger, and the galaxy realized the truth. Something was waking. 5,000 years of silence had ended, and the lock was undone. Now the prison stirred. From the outer edges of space, reports came, flooding in. Entire fleets vanished into black storms that appeared without warning. Stars dimmed as though their light was being swallowed. Strange echoes whispered across comms, sounds that were not words yet carried weight like voices too old for language. And through it all, the pulse of the forbidden signal grew louder, no longer hidden, no longer faint. It beat across the void like a heart. Humanity did not retreat. Where other races pulled back their ships in terror, humans pressed forward. Admirals ordered their dreadnoughts to hold formation near the rifts. Captains spoke to their crews with calm voices, even as the stars bent unnaturally around them. Whatever comes, they said, we will stand. The galaxy watched from the shadows. Councils trembled as they monitored humanity's fleets. None could understand this stubbornness. They do not know what they face, one elder muttered. They will be the first to fall. Yet another voice, quiet and uneasy, answered, or the first to endure. Then, on the 7th day after the reply, the rift opened. It began as a tear in the black, no larger than a scar across the sky. But as it widened, light itself bent around it. The void howled, dragging ships off course, making gravity lurch like a storm at sea. Humanity's vessels held steady, thrusters burning as they fought to stay in position. And then from the wound in space, shapes emerged. They were not ships in any familiar sense. They were older, darker, their hulls scarred with time, older than empires, older than memory. Each vessel was vast, carved with patterns that twisted like moving shadows. They radiated power that made sensors shriek with warnings humanity could not decipher. To the alien races watching from afar, those shapes were nightmares from their oldest myths. Vessels from a war so ancient no records survived, only fear. The first of the ancient vessels glided forward, silent and heavy with menace. Humanity's dreadnoughts turned their guns, but they did not fire. Admirals gave the order, hold. Humanity had called, and now they would see who had answered. The rift widened further, and more shapes poured through. Dozens, then hundreds. An armada older than the stars themselves. The galaxy shuddered, empires prayed, and still humanity did not flinch. Across the comms of human ships, voices spoke. They were not alien tongues. They were not even words. They were raw impressions burned into the minds of every crew. Images of fire, conquest, broken worlds. A presence older than history, now aware of humanity's answer. And yet, instead of despair, humanity answered with defiance. We are not afraid, one captain whispered, though his hands trembled on the controls. If this is the enemy we called, then let them see us. The first strike came without warning. A beam of light tore from one of the ancient ships, slamming into a human destroyer. Shields collapsed, hull shattered, and the vessel was gone in an instant. Across the galaxy, alien watchers gasped. It begins, they whispered. The humans are finished. But they were wrong. Before the echoes of the first strike had faded, humanity answered. Dreadnoughts fired in unison, weapons blazing with precision. Beams of light lanced through the dark, slamming into the ancient ship that had fired. For a moment, it held. And then, to the shock of every watching empire, it broke. The ancient vessel shuddered, cracked, and exploded into fragments that burned like dying suns. The galaxy froze in disbelief. It was supposed to be impossible. No fleet in history had ever stood against the forbidden, and yet humanity had done it, in the first exchange. The rift screamed louder, more vessels pushing through, more darkness spilling into the stars. The war had begun, and at its center humanity stood like a wall of fire, unyielding, unbroken. In the hidden chambers of alien councils, silence reigned. Finally, one voice spoke, heavy with awe. They are not prey. They are not fools. Humanity has awakened the forbidden, and they intend to fight it. The awakening had come, and with it, the galaxy realized a terrifying truth. The forbidden had waited 5,000 years to be answered, but humanity had waited just as long to prove why they should never be ignored. The galaxy had expected humanity to fall in moments. One strike, one blast of ancient fire, and the new species would be nothing but ashes scattered through the void. But when the first of the forbidden vessels shattered under human guns, everything changed. Across countless systems, alien empires fell silent. Generals who had sworn humanity would be wiped away froze in disbelief. Historians who had written that the forbidden were unstoppable stared at their screens in shock. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not only stood against the oldest enemy of the stars, they had drawn blood. But this was only the beginning. The rift widened further, tearing across space like a wound that would never heal. Dozens more of the ancient ships poured through, their presence heavy and suffocating. Each vessel radiated power older than the oldest empires. Their weapons bent space, their shields warped time itself, and every pulse of their engines felt like the heartbeat of a monster. To most races of the galaxy, it was the end of hope. To humanity, it was the test they had been waiting for. Inside the bridge of a human dreadnought, alarms wailed and screens flickered with warnings. The captain stood firm, eyes locked on the growing swarm. His voice cut through the fear like steel. Hold formation, no retreat. Today humanity speaks in fire. The ancient ships moved with eerie grace. They did not rush. They did not panic. They spread out slowly, surrounding humanity's fleet like predators circling prey. But humans did not bow. Their ships turned as one, guns primed, engines roaring. For a moment the void stood still, two forces, old and new, staring into each other's soul. Then the first encounter truly began. A storm of light burst from the forbidden fleet. Beams thick as mountains tore across the void, slamming into human shields. One cruiser was split in half, spinning into the dark. Another was pierced through the core, its crew vanishing in fire. Yet even as the ancient weapons burned, humanity did not break. Return fire. The order came, and humanity answered. Dreadnought cannons roared. Missiles streaked across the stars. Railguns thundered with steel fury. Every shot was precise. Every strike aimed not at random, but at weakness. Where other races had fired blindly and failed, humanity studied, adapted, and struck with deadly focus. Shields cracked, hulls tore. Two more ancient ships burned, collapsing under the relentless human barrage. Across the galaxy, watchers gasped. It was madness, and brilliance. The forbidden were stronger, older, and countless. Humanity was smaller, newer, and fragile. And yet, in that first clash, it was the ancients who faltered. But the battle was far from victory. More rifts opened, vomiting new ships into the stars. The swarm doubled, then tripled. Humanity's fleet was outnumbered 10 to 1, then 20. For every ancient vessel destroyed, 3 more emerged. Human cruisers fell one after another, brave crews fighting until their last breath. The void became a graveyard, littered with burning wreckage. Still, the humans did not retreat. They refused. Admirals spoke calmly into their comms, voices steady despite the chaos. Remember who you are. Remember what we carry. The galaxy may run from this darkness, but we will not. And so they fought on. Every ship that fell bought time for another to strike. Every sacrifice carved another scar into the forbidden fleet. The battle stretched on for hours, a storm of fire and steel. Alien observers whispered in awe. They fight as though death does not touch them. Then came the moment that shook the galaxy. At the heart of the rift, a shape larger than any ship yet seen emerged. A colossal vessel, vast as a moon, wrapped in black armor that shimmered with unnatural light. Its presence crushed the void. Its shadow swallowed fleets. It was not just a ship. It was a relic of war from before history. The very thing that had once forced the galaxy into silence. The ancient flagship. It moved forward slowly, weapons glowing like suns, and the galaxy whispered in despair. This is the end, the elder said. No one can face that. But humanity's fleet did not waver. Every gun turned toward the Titan. Every captain swore their fire. Humanity had no choice now. They had answered the signal, and the forbidden had come. The first encounter would not be remembered for fear. It would be remembered for humanity's answer. The void erupted in chaos, ancient fire clashing with human defiance, the old against the new, the prison against the key that had broken it. And as the flagship advanced, one truth became clear. Across the stars, humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was war. The ancient flagship loomed over the battlefield like a god of war. Larger than a moon covered in shifting black armor, it radiated power that bent space around it. Alien empires watching from afar whispered in dread. This was the ship that had silenced entire civilizations. This was the vessel that had forced the galaxy into 5,000 years of silence. Every elder race knew the stories, and every elder race believed the same thing. Humanity would be crushed in seconds. But humanity did not run. On the bridge of every dreadnought, human captain stood tall. Crews stared into the storm without flinching. Admirals' voices echoed calm and steady. We stand. We do not bow. The galaxy will know who we are. The flagship fired. A beam of energy brighter than a sun tore across the void, engulfing 3 human cruisers. They vanished in silence, erased as though they had never existed. The galaxy gasped. Yet even as ships died, humanity answered. Every dreadnought turned its guns on the Titan. Missiles streaked, railguns roared, beams of fire lanced forward. The void burned with fury. But the flagship did not break. Its shields absorbed the storm, its armor shrugged off impacts that would have shattered planets. It pressed forward, unstoppable, inevitable. Alien leaders muttered prayers of despair. This is the end. Humanity was bold, but even boldness has limits. But humanity was not finished. On board the flagship dreadnought Resolute, Admiral Kellen gave the order. Release the core. Across the fleet, hidden systems unlocked, weapons designed in secret, weapons even the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had prepared for war long before this day, and they had built tools meant for enemies exactly like this. The first core lance fired. A beam of pure energy, condensed into a single unstoppable strike, slammed into the flagship's shields. For a moment the Titan wavered. Cracks shimmered across its defenses. Humanity fired again and again. One by one, every ship unleashed its hidden arsenal. The void shook as if the stars themselves were screaming. And for the first time the ancient flagship faltered. The galaxy erupted in disbelief. It cannot be, whispered an elder, his voice trembling. The forbidden, they can bleed. But the flagship fought back. Its weapons tore through human lines. Destroyers shattered. Carriers exploded. Thousands of human lives were lost in fire. Yet with every death, humanity struck harder. With every sacrifice, their fury grew stronger. They were not fighting for survival alone. They were fighting to prove a truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity was not a species to be erased. The battle raged until the void was thick with wreckage. At last, Admiral Kellen spoke one final command. All ships, focus fire. Every remaining dreadnought turned its guns toward the flagship. Missiles poured like rain. Beams tore through the dark. The core lances fired in unison, their light brighter than 100 suns. The flagship's shields shattered, its armor split. The Titan that had once ruled the stars groaned under the weight of humanity's fury. And then, with a final scream that echoed across every sensor in the galaxy, it broke apart. A shockwave tore through space, scattering debris like ash on the wind. The forbidden flagship was gone. Silence filled the battlefield. Humanity's fleet floated among wreckage, scarred and burning, but unbroken. Across the galaxy, alien races wept in awe and fear. They had waited 5,000 years for the forbidden to return, believing no one could ever defeat them. But humanity had answered differently. Humanity had stood, had fought, and had won. And in that moment, the galaxy understood a new truth. The forbidden had been powerful, but the real storm was humanity itself, reckless, defiant, unstoppable. The council chambers echoed with a single whispered phrase: humanity has become the answer. For humanity, the victory was not only survival, it was a declaration. They had entered the stars as newcomers, dismissed as children. But now they were something more. Warriors who had defied the oldest fear in existence. The galaxy would never again look at them as weak. 5,000 years of silence had ended, and humanity's answer was written in fire. The galaxy would remember.